You have to ask yourself an honest question. Do you need somebody to motivate you before you train? Does your girlfriend have to convince you to put the video games down for you to put them down? Do you need to hear, or do you need to be given something from outside for you to end up doing any of the things which are required for the basic premise of survival? And a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't matter if I don't have that much help, or it doesn't matter if I don't try that hard because I want to be the average man. Average is simply failing so similarly to the people around you that you don't realize you failed at all. Everyone else around you is failing the same way, so you don't see it as failure, you see it as average. But if the bar of the average person's life is being constantly reduced, it doesn't matter if you're an average person because you've moved into loserdom. In the 1950s, the average man had a good house, he had a wife who loved him, he had children, he had a nice car on the drive, he was the king of his castle. Nowadays, the average man can't pay his bills, divorced wife, his kids don't listen to him, he's not respected, he's in debt. Now, he's still average, but you can't compare him to the man from the 1950s who was average. The social standing for average is being pushed further and further down. The average man's life is going to get worse and worse and worse. So claiming that you're average is no longer enough. In fact, for you to have a life like the average man had in the 1950s, a nice big house, multiple cars on the drive, a woman who adores you, who will birth your children, who obeys you, who stays at home and cooks and cleans, children who love you and would obey you and fear you when you raise your voice, who adopt your creeds and your worldviews. For you to have the average man's life today, you're now an exceptional man. The average man's life is actually an exceptional man's life, depending on the time you look at it, because they're pushing down the average man's life further and further. You're not allowed to be an average man anymore and sit around waiting for the government or your girlfriend or your mom or your friends or anybody else to take care of you and convince you to not be an idiot. You think being average is fine because you think that means kids, wife, job, and your legacy continues. But average means average, and you don't get to define the definition of average, your government does.